Without further ado, I want to introduce our first speaker of the day, Faris Jacob, or Faris as he likes to go by. Faris is the Chief Innovation Officer at MDC Partners, and it's a business transformation company based here in New York. Prior to founding MDC, Faris was the first ever EVP Chief Technology Strategist at McCann Erickson. One of the interesting things I just found about Faris, he was recently named one of the modern day madmen by Fast Company. So I think we're going to have to find out a little bit about that. But really to start us off today, we thought it'd be a great way to start us off with just some thought-provoking ideas and perspective on branding to get you guys thinking. So, Faris? Is he here?
I am here.
Where
Hello. My mic's on now. It's all right.
Where are you, Faris?
I'm here. Do you have a dibber? You got it? Great. Okay, I'll come up there then. It's easy.
What is?
I'll come this way. Why not? Hey.
We got it.
Wonderful. We're all very well rehearsed, as you can tell. Good. Very good. Morning. Thanks. Thanks so much.
What do you call this?
A dibber. A dibber. For dibbing things.
Nice. Well, he's got his dibber.
Let's see if it works.
Welcome, Faris.
Thanks. Yes, welcome me. Hooray. You're too kind. It's proleptic at this stage. Morning. Hello. How is everybody? Good. It's all right. I'm quite friendly. You can talk back if you want. I don't mind, honestly. When I ask questions, if they don't seem entirely rhetorical, feel free to answer. Good. Who went to the cocktail thing last night? A few of you? Was it good? Sorry I missed it. I'm just trying to find sympathy and sort of hungover audience, Junie. All right, we'll get started. Good morning. Hello, I'm Faris. You heard about what I do. I won't labour that point. This is called Wherever You Want to Go, I think. I kind of hedged it with a subtitle, Experience Matters, but you got that. That's the theme of the day. Well, I'm already 10 minutes behind. How can that be? It's going to run late, just so you know. I'm going to run late. It's going to be good though. Why not? Right, what's next? See the dibber? I'm dibbing now. Brilliant. Oh, yes. This is sort of a caveat and a sort of designed to make you feel comfortable. Some of the things, when we talk about the massive exogenous disruption delivered to commerce and culture by technologies like the internet and mobile phones and stuff, it can be quite scary, can't it? Because change is often quite scary to people. So don't worry. If things seem to be going badly, it tips up at the end, and it's quite kind of uplifting, mostly. I'm relatively bullish, just to give the sort of end away. It's going to be amazing, I assume. And this isn't about me. I'm not going to be amazing necessarily. It's more the industry and all that kind of good stuff. I might be amazing. It'd be rude to sort of say that, wouldn't it? I'm not very humble, and I'm British. Hello. This is all preamble. It's just warming you up, you see. It's quite early, isn't it? And it's the beginning of a long day. Yeah. So, hello. We can be friends if you want. That's nice. Good. So that's the hello slide done. This is me. Excellent. You may recognise me from here. You've heard about what I do, so that's not important. I'm doing digital, brandy, internet-y stuff for a long time. As a management consultant and later as a journalist and then in advertising-like places. So the important things on this slide are, one, this is my name, Faris, and the @ in front of it. Should you wish to directly ask questions to me and you're shy to do it here, people get shy, I know that, it's fine. You can tweet at me and I promise I will either look at it and possibly respond. Also, I have antlers in this photo. That's good, isn't it? Now, the reason for this is because I think it's funny primarily, but also because I want to point out that I'm here to provoke and not be definitive in a set of recommendations. Because in times of massive flux, if you're really certain about things, you're probably going to be wrong, essentially. People who are really certain about anything, turns out, often tend to be wrong, I've noticed. I'm certain about almost nothing, so I'm probably right. I assume that's how it works. So the antlers are just to remind you, I don't have any answers, I just have antlers. Thank you very much, thank you. That joke works better in American, antlers, answers, than it does in English, unfortunately. Never mind. So, Oh, yes. Now, it's good. This is called Experience Matters, isn't it, for me? Because the agency I work for, KBS, which is owned by MDC Partners, which I didn't found. I'd love to have founded it, but I did not. I just work there. They have a thing, it's like a line or a thought, called Do Things That Matter. And that is the same word as the word in Experience Matters. So that's nice. What matters, I guess, is part of what I'll try and address in the next 33 minutes-ish. Experience matters, right, good. So we've got that nailed. What matters is experience, excellent. Big word, experience, isn't it? Means a lot of different things. Let's look at some of them. First of all, to make this personal, whose experience matters? Whose? Targeting and that. Not really, no. Whose experience? My answer to this question is slightly. It's your opinion. Your experience matters to me for the next hour, anyway. But you are paradigmatic of the modern traveller, I assume, based entirely on context and knowing none of you, apart from a couple of faces I recognise. You're here, so I can probably guess you have a certain facility with technology. You're relatively comfortable online, potentially. You probably have a smartphone, as per the previous conversation. And you probably frequently fly. You probably travel a great deal, both for business and pleasure. And it's this kind of sort of technically literate traveller that I'm talking about now, because it's them that face a particular set of challenges, changing contexts, and so forth. The technology piece is important, but we need to get beyond it slightly, by which I mean, when you are a geek, and I patently am a geek, and you work in advertising and business in general, people often ask you to explain the evolving mediascape and describe how technology is impacting commerce and culture. The important thing to remember, though, is that technology platforms, by their very nature, are iterative. The smartphones you got 7 years ago will not be the smartphones you have next year. Things change. In fact, thanks to the ever-increasing acceleration of Moore's law, things change faster and not more slowly. The one thing you know about tomorrow is it'll change twice as fast as yesterday because Moore's law exponentiates. It goes up fast, curve. So, human behavior changes less rapidly than that. And we are in the business of understanding behavior, not technology. So I like to remind myself with this quote that we shouldn't focus just on the emergent technologies, but the emerging cultural practices that are being engendered by these technologies. These things change more slowly. Human beings don't like change. So in this visualization, we spend a lot of time thinking about the phones, and we need to think about the monkey. Because the monkey is using the phone, and the monkey is the important bit. He buys the flights, in the sort of tortured metaphor I just made. Right, so what does this mean? What do I mean by emerging cultural practices? Well, I'll show you. This is a little video. To introduce it, I wrote the substance of this in about 2006 as an attempt to chart what I thought would happen to the mediascape for people and devices and so forth. And I've been using it ever since, because mostly I was right, and it's very satisfying to be right in public. It is set in 2010. Those of you who are paying attention will realize it is 2012, if not nearly the end of 2012 now, and so this might seem like it's in the past, but it's not. It's in the future. It's just set in a nominal past. You'll get the idea. It's very simple. I'll just play it.
You are hyperconnected, always on, always in touch, wherever you are. There is no longer a division between on and offline. Information augments reality. By 2010, technology has begun to change what you understand entertainment and communication to be. The line between the two continues to blur. Content is digital and ubiquitous. Broadband is standard and increasingly mobile. Bandwidth is offered free as an incentive. You think of it as a utility like power. Your mobile is hyperlocal, GPS enabled. You never get lost. Your location is part of your profile, allowing you to use it to communicate, create, or play. Hyperconnectivity allows you to communicate more, to experience more. Entertainment that leverages these freedoms comes to the fore, weaving transmedia narratives that flow across channels for you to experience and contribute to, individually and together. The Google G Drive anywhere. Google TV streams broadcast content to any screen, in your home and beyond. You broadcast a continuous stream to your networks, supplementing your one-to-one interactions, managed through your distributed digital identity, which tailors your feeds to different groups. Your networks spring up around different social objects, pictures, films, links, experiences. Culture is increasingly fragmenting along these axes as global influences trigger the formation of ever more niche interest groups. Content constantly cries out for your attention. To avoid overload, you become an increasingly selective experiencer, relying on recommendations to make informed choices about how best to spend your time and money. You no longer search, you share. Some content comes from brands you have befriended, some is professionally produced. Much of it comes from other people. Personal content from your networks is both entertainment and communication. You use content to communicate, creating or personalizing it and propagating it, creating yourself in the process. Your desire to exercise control drives a greater expansion of games and gaming behaviors. Play becomes pervasive. Ubiquity triggers a shift in value. Your concerns are things that really matter: friends, relationships, the world. Hyperconnectivity allows for their continuous partial presence, sowing the seeds of heightened social consciousness. So much of every day is mediated that you define yourself around your media behaviors. This accelerates a counter-trend, the rise of real-time, more concerts and festivals, sports and interactive experiences, commercial and grassroots. You feel World Cup fever. It pulls everyone in. The Olympics are coming. Everyone seems to be getting involved in sports, watching or taking part. All these events are now captured, adapted and propagated. Stamping your mark on a collaborative experience allows you to express your individuality. The generation gap has never been wider. The passive massive, the mainstream, raised before the adoption of interaction, will never fully embrace this immersive, pervasive media. The tools are available, but the behaviour is too ingrained. You realise there's an opportunity for brands to build relationships in a new way, with a growing number of you that have adopted these new behaviours. But that, for the passive massive, things haven't really changed much at all. The passive massive is a majority, but you are beginning to experience the future.
That's my slightly hippie vision of the future, which is now 3 years in the past. I was speaking in Oslo at this conference March this year, and this is an entirely tangential anecdote, but anyway, the keynote was Tim Berners-Lee, who those of you who are familiar with the internet may be aware of, because he invented the web by himself in a room at CERN in 1989. Which is impressive, isn't it? Like, it's hard when you're on a billing. There's me, didn't invent the web. Tim Berners-Lee did. I felt quite inadequate, essentially, as I often do, my girlfriend tells me. The point was, I played this video and I felt quite good because the day before I played it, Google finally announced the G Drive, or the Google Drive, as you decided annoyingly to call it. And I was like, well, at least I got that right. And the timing was perfect. So that was good. So that's you, and that's the world as it is now-ish, in my opinion. And I was pretty close. The Olympics happened, all that kind of good stuff. So, travel bits of that. What do you think about travel? Because of those things I just described in the future in that video, something is happening to our perceptions of value in the travel category. Something has happened, more accurately. We expect a great deal. And we feel slightly that we're not getting a great deal in all these segments and blah, blah, blah. This is a good study I got off the internet from IBM, which is actually worth having a look at. But the point is that there's some lack of satisfaction happening because of this differential between inflated expectations and reality. And let's think about why that might be. Oh, yeah. This doesn't just affect travelers. This is something that's very important to travel booking companies, I believe, the look-to-book ratio. In the early bit of the internet, for every 100 looks, you would get a book. Now, it's about 1,000 looks per book. And it's getting higher and higher all the time. This is a function of what we're trying to discuss, which is kind of this this sense of hunting, this sense of an opportunity cost, this sense of anxiety that the pricing structure of travel is somehow opaque, because it is. Well, it is, though. Let's look at why. Travel, both flights and hotels, use dynamic pricing models, so prices of the same things change depending on demand. So literally, the more you search for a flight, as you all know, the more expensive it becomes. So that confuses people a bit, doesn't it? And then you have disintermediation. The internet is the great disintermediator. It connects everything to everything else, allowing direct access to suppliers, not through the medium of travel agents who take care of that thing. One of the first big fatalities of the internet, even before record companies and MP3s, was travel agencies as a sort of little shop on the high street, Thomas Cook in the UK. And there's this transparency thing, right? Transparency allows for meta search. XML and APIs means you can look at many things at once. So what happens is there's this increased perceived opportunity cost because there's this feeling that it might be cheaper somewhere else, and it often is. And because of the function of meta search engines, there's a perceived commoditization because the search engine only extracts same data: name, flight, time, price. Inevitably then, all the discussions, all the comparisons being made of providers and brands are based on price, and that means there is commoditization in the marketplace. It's a bit scary, isn't it? I told you it was going to be okay. That was the bit, remember I meant at the beginning? It's going to be fine. This is the bit where you get scared. It's all right. Commoditization is a really scary thing for companies, isn't it? Nobody wants to compete just on price. It's an endless downward spiral. Fortunately, we have solutions to this problem. Ish. This is one of the solutions to this problem. I believe in a thing called brands. I do, actually. I spend a lot of my life thinking about brands. You see this? These are brands here. Do you get the joke? They're also brands. You know, the word brand comes from the... I do it for your benefit, right? Like, it's... they're brands, right? Brands are magical things. They create persistent, non-rational economic behaviors. This is odd. It's very odd, actually. And they do it all the time in ways that are really interesting. I spend a lot of my time thinking about brands. I understand why companies like brands. They create massive intangible goodwill value on balance sheets, for example. They also, as I said, create persistent, irrational economic behaviors, such as paying price premiums more regularly among larger groups of people. There is an effect we can measure that this happens. What I was trying to understand is why people like brands. Because why does it makes everyone act crazy and pay more money for the same stuff? Why do we do that? There must be something happening that we think is creating value for us. One of the ways they create value is to allow us to pass commoditized, functionally parity-based categories, like all of them are in the world. I'll give you an example. So I arrived in America about 5 years ago now, and I was alone, and lonely, and socially awkward. And so I did what anybody who's British would do in this situation, and went out drinking heavily. And the next morning, I was hungover, and so I wanted to find painkillers. And I thought, it's simple. I wandered into Duane Reade, which at the time wasn't owned by Walgreens, and was still that sort of strip lighting, vitamin D sucking environment. And I walked up to the pain-killing thing, and I was confronted by this. And I was like, why, what? So one of the things I had to counter was the fact that the word paracetamol is not paracetamol in America, and it's acetaminophen. That's the same Greek root, invented by Boots the chemist in the UK, by the way. Go Britain. We invented it. It's magic. Anyway, not good for your liver, but otherwise good. So once I worked that out, I was like, okay, I know these are all painkillers. These are all paracetamol in legally prescribed doses, in white capsules. So why are they all different? What are all these things? Because you see, none of these brands exist in the UK, right? So I had no way to choose. All these products are functionally the same. In fact, they're exactly functionally the same. They have to be. It's how chemicals work, apparently. And and I stood there, and booze is seeping out of my skin as the sort of halogen lamps suck it and evaporate it off my body, you know what I mean? And I'm there, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I have no rational way to make this choice. And then I was like, oh, come on, what is it? And my brain just went, wait a second, remember in E.T., They have Tylenol. You've heard of that? Brilliant. Done! The brand saved me. Finally, I have a way to make a decision. And it's not based on what the product does, or the fact that it gets you somewhere, or the fact that it makes the pain go away. It's based on needing a way to make a decision. In fact, in a modern hyper-capitalist society, brands function like heuristics. If you were forced to make genuine economic rational decisions about every product you bought in a supermarket, your life would stop in that supermarket. There would be no time left. We need shortcuts, heuristics. I am fond of the idea of heuristics. This will come up again later. There won't be a test, however, so it's okay. So yeah, making choices is hard. People don't like doing it. People want a way to do it without being, and brands help. This was the way we created brands for the last 50 years or so. We called it advertising. Now, this wasn't the truth. It's never been this way. Brands are a holistic totality, as we'll look at in a second, but the primary way in which we created the abstract associations that are brands and appended them to products was using advertising, TV, print, posters, blah, blah, blah. All very super. But now, oh, that was good. Let's go back. Check this out. Now, that's a transition. I use them sparingly, but when I do, I get excited. Now, see, the thing about the internet, as I said, is it connects everything to everything else. It makes it all visible. When someone knows something, everyone knows something, thanks to the internet. Secrets don't work. So brands are more holistically understood now, in my opinion. The brand is, the way I think about brands anyway, is a behavioral template, a generative way of thinking about the world. Google was my client in London, and then in Australia, and then again in New York at the Creative Lab when it was birthed, was my client. And Google has one of the strongest brands in the world because everyone here knows what googly means. They can't necessarily articulate it, but when you show them ideas, they go, it's not very googly, that, is it? And you go, what does it mean? What do you mean by googly? You must be clearer. I need better feedback. But after a while, you get it. They internalize this value system of what Google represents, and they can use it to make decisions. It guides the behavior of the company. What you say and what you do is an aspect of that. And then your shops and your social and your products and your PR and your ad, it's all aspects of the totality of the experience you create for people. The other bit we're thinking about is that you don't get to control most of the conversation around your brand anymore. Previously you did, because no one else had access to the means of production and distribution that allowed them to create media ideas in the world at scale. Now everyone does, and they do it all the time. There's more people talking about you than you are talking about you, I guess. So the intersection of everybody's expectations of all their experiences and what they say about you creates the brand somewhere in those circles. So I've been thinking about how we should then change how we behave as companies and agencies and so forth to adapt to this. And this is one of the ways I think about it. A brand is a belief in how the world should be, and currently is not. It's an ambition, it's a promise, it's a stated goal. And it should inform your actions in totality. Like I said, googly is every meeting, it's every idea, it's everything. So the actions and the tools and the content you create are all aspects of that system. And sometimes those tools and content become advertising, and sometimes they don't. But doing stuff and telling people seems quite a good idea to me. And helping people and entertaining them, that seems like a good idea to me. This is what I mean by that model. Wait a second. This is something we did at the agency, based kind of on this thinking, to give you an example, so I'm not just being too theoretical. Here you go.
In July 2010, BMW briefed us to launch their first ever electric vehicle, the Active E. The objective was to inform the mass production version of the car, which would come out in 2013. Rather than seeing this as a typical car launch, we started thinking about it more like an experiment, one we called collective engineering. In the first phase of the experiment, we created a conversation with our target, the electronauts, not about a product, but about a topic we knew they were passionate about, the future of mobility. We partnered with a host of thought leaders to discuss the topic in a series of short films that we called Wherever You Want to Go.
Electric cars, they're silent. And for guys like me, that's a big thing. I mean, we're driving around in this thing, and we've got big rumbles, and we've got sounds, and we've got stuff.
You know you're moving.
And we know we're moving, and we stall.
The jetpack concept, I don't think that's ever happening.
50% of the world lives in cities, and so we need to figure out how to be as efficient as possible.
Put that on, and you can go across town or wherever you want to go.
The future of mobility, they better make it fun. That's it. They better make it fun.
The thought leaders were among the thousands who interacted with and shared the content. They became not just participants in the films, but also part of the distribution network. The net result was that the films garnered 450 million media impressions for almost $0 media dollars and created a community of actively engaged individuals. Once we'd built this community, we moved into the second phase of the experiment, providing tools that engage them in the EV lifestyle and allowed them to simulate and track their daily drives. The dashboard that collected the information on their movements let users see whether an electric car was right for them and understand their impact on emissions both as individuals and as members of local and even global communities. We were able to collect data worthy of a scientific experiment, data that went well beyond a specific car. The data has been passed to BMW's engineers, and as we enter the final phase of the project, they are analyzing that information. The insights they glean from this newly minted community of electronauts will inform the next generation of BMW vehicles and impact how we get to wherever we want to go.
So, as you can now tell, the title of my talk is designed to be self-aggrandizing, so I can use that clip, and the rest of it isn't really relevant. As a content tools. Help people do stuff, talk about it, ads, brilliant. As a brief adjunct, in 1967, a guy called Theodore Levitt, who's Harvard's marketing professor at the time, wrote an article called Marketing Myopia, where he talks about the impact of focusing too aggressively on the product you sell, not the customer need. His example is transport-based, and he says that the great growth industry of America in the 1890s and early sort of 20s, I guess, were the railroads. Railroads were a huge, massive growth industry. When cars were invented and domestic airline travel became realistic and affordable, the railroad barons went, well, that's not a problem because we sell railroad tickets, not flights, and it doesn't matter. And eventually that industry collapsed because people were substituting railroads with airlines and cars. It's important to understand what people are really buying from you. There is a functional aspect to getting from point A to point B, but as they put it so aptly, we know why you fly isn't about that, is it? Maybe it is. Right, on to travel. Which experience matters? Which flavor of experience? Which bit? I'll look at a couple. Because, and you'll get my point, there's different ways to think about experiences based on duration. And I'll explain what I mean. This is a print advertisement for Emirates. It promises something which isn't true. Blah, 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 blah. The line's quite good. Consider it a vacation meeting at the end. It's quite fun like that. Business, travel, blah, blah. There's tension in that thought. But it's a seamless experience. That's what it says. It's a seamless experience. Blah, blah, blah. The rest is irrelevant. The seamlessness is what we're promising. Fluidity and ease and kind of a singular. That's not real, is it? Buying travel isn't like that at all. Oh yeah, we'll get to experiences in a second. Let me get to the next bit. When thinking about experiences, one tool to understand how experiences work for your business is called an experience map. I like this one, it's for Starbucks. This is simply one person going to Starbucks to buy coffee. There's quite a lot of bits in that. The bit to pay attention to is the top bit. There is a baseline of experience, expectation being met. Above that, enriched experience, where the brand provides additional value that was not expected. And below that, diminished experience, where the brand somehow detracts from the experience you were hoping for. To give an obvious example, free Wi-Fi at Starbucks is an enrichment to buying coffee. But if you're going to go to Starbucks to do any work, you'll find the tables are a bit small for that. So that diminishes that experience. Working out where these maps begin and end is part of the challenge of businesses, right? Because You want to be able to consistently enrich experience. If you want genuine loyalty, not the loyalty which comes from programs and miles, the loyalty which is kind of offered freely, you have to super satisfy with the experience. You must under-promise and over-deliver on a consistent basis, which, as we find out in a bit, is quite complicated. It's quite difficult to do that. But that kind of loyalty generates word of mouth, naturally. Whereas loyalty of programmatic function is less likely to inspire people to talk about it. This is the seamless experience. I found this, I like this a lot, it's good. I think eDreams made it. This is the process of buying, of doing travel. And I think there's a nice one in the Think document as well, a very similar kind of, planning, researching, buying, blah, blah. This is the number of brands you could theoretically encounter in a single travel experience, from inspiration and reviews, through searching and booking and price comparison and planning tools and the research and the travel agency or the meta search and the direct sale and the private sale, the group buy, the peer-to-peer buy, the Airbnb selection, who knows. And then I did Airbnb for a while in my apartment. It was quite fun. Then the landlord shut me down. Apparently it's illegal. Oh well. Foursquare. So there's a lot of different brands who are sharing the experience with whatever brand you look after. You don't get to be seamless, do you? Because you don't have access to the whole experience anymore. Which screams for competition, which is a really annoying neologism, isn't it? But, working with people instead of fighting them. So let's look at the search and booking experience very briefly. I won't hammer this point, it's obvious. This is Kayak, you're probably familiar with it. It's a meta search engine. Here is a flight to London from New York. I live here, I used to live there. This is the top price, it's on some airline. This is the price for it. This is the same search on Skyscanner. A second later, there is a $10 differential on the price. 76, 66. This happens all the time, as well you know. If you search for Kayak, Skyscanner, Omondo, Hipmunk, you will find different prices for the same exact flight. This causes the opportunity cost anxiety. This causes the confusion. It's a function of technology in some aspect. When these things were opaque, no one worried about it. Now, buying flights is scary because it takes ages. Again, the IBM report, which I really like. It takes apparently up to 5 hours to search and book travel online for about a fifth of the customer base. 5 hours! 5 hours! That's the average amount of time people watch TV every day in this country. Admittedly, that sounds... Anyway, that's a lot. And the thought of doing it freaks me out, man. It's like, oh, it sounds stressful, yo. No matter whether the system that you happen to buy and search with is brilliant and beautiful and well-rendered and UX genius, 5 hours doesn't matter. It still affects the experience in totality. As we find out, beginnings are quite important for experiences because your brain, as we're about to get into, which is the fun bit, trust me, doesn't remember things the way you think it does. Beginnings are important. Previously, we were speaking about service and customer service being very important. This is true. It's got a lot more annoying recently, hasn't it, customer service? Because of things like Twitter. Twitter is brilliant, but it changes the threshold of expectation. Because if you don't respond in real time to my tweet when I'm angry, I get more angry. And then I tweet more about how angry I am at you at the airport when I'm delayed and probably drinking. Becoming increasingly belligerent. Do you know what I mean, right? Before that, no one expected you to respond necessarily. Now they kind of get angry when you don't. In fact, there's a perceived gap here. There is some research behind this, but you get the point. Companies tend to prefer using Twitter as a promotional channel for branding devices because it's primarily a one-way thing. People would prefer you fix our problems in real time via Twitter. Now, some companies get this, and it is super awesome. American Airlines is very good at this. Well done, American Airlines, despite the bankruptcy thing. Poor taste, I'm sorry. But they are really good at this, actually, and I respect them for it. I had an experience. I was on the way to the airport with my girlfriend. We were going to a wedding. She was a bridesmaid. There was no margin for error. I didn't understand how stressed women get about being bridesmaids. It's a big deal. The flight we were going to, whilst we were in the cab, was cancelled for no reason that we could discern. This caused many, many paroxysms of fear. And so I did what people do who are old, like me. Started phoning at somebody going, fix this. That didn't work. I couldn't even get through to anybody. However, we tweeted at them. They tweeted it back at us. We got into a DM conversation. They rebooked us on the next flight over Twitter. That was awesome. I've never been so impressed with somebody, like as a company, right? That was so beyond my expectations, and it worked. I was like, that's so cool, yo. And generally, my impression of that company is forever changed. To some degree. One of the things that's worth remembering, if you wanted to remember stuff, you don't have to, it won't be a test, as I said, is that thinking about customer service and branding as two different ideas is probably an error. In the old world, resolving an individual problem made little difference because individually no one had any reach. In the now world, if you do customer service publicly on social platforms with massive reach, you did some branding. You see how that works? Customer service becomes branding when made public. Because our brains respond really, really well to people being nice to people. In fact, as a basic rule of thinking, right? Advertising is of the modality usually of going, hello, I'm great. Hello, how are you? I'm great. Hello. The thing I do is good. I think it's great. Obviously, I'm a bit biased, but it's great. And if you wanted to buy it, that'd be super. Which is one way to get people to like you. Bit obvious, bit needy, potentially. Another way to get people to like you is to do nice things for other people in front of them. Because people like that, you see. Anyway. Ooh, this one's slightly counterintuitive, which I like. The unseen experience matters. Why would that possibly be, Ferris? I hear you're not asking. Why would the unseen experience matter at all? Well, because it can also precipitate anxiety, concern. And alleviating that concern, providing peace of mind, is very valuable to people. This is what I mean. Because this video is quite long, could you put the audio down a little bit? Sorry. It's quite long, this video, so I sped it up to 8 times speed to get through it fast. Trying to be respectful of your time. I'm about to run out of time, and I'm about halfway through. It's going to run very late. It's all right. The good stuff comes towards the end. Now, that's Delta, and what they did, brilliantly in my opinion, is understand that people with checking luggage have a weird relationship with this right now. One, you've got to pay for it, don't like that. Two, there's this image everyone has that's not real of luggage handlers throwing suitcases across airport tarmacs because of movies, right? And you've seen it in movies, like, and then things break, and that guy with his guitar got broken, and he got sad and made a video. Oopsies. Customer service done publicly is marketing. There you go. No, anyway, so they put a camera in a bag, checked it, and filmed it. Beautiful. Really nice little bit of film. And then, content piece, made an application for your phone that lets you track the luggage in real time like the UPS do. That's nice, isn't it? Just feel a bit better about checking it now, so I'll pay the $20. I got a little app. It's great. Now, here it gets slightly more conceptual. Ready? How's it all going so far? I know it's a lot early for this. I know. I'm glad you think so. You can talk. You see, he's nice. I like that. Good. It's going to get quite more conceptual now. So this is the bit I enjoy more. Why is the memory of the experience important? The memory of the experience is incredibly important, and possibly more important than anything apart from one other thing that we'll get to at the end. Why is that? Well, it's because of the way your brain works. Now, Daniel Kahneman is a Nobel Prize-winning psychologist and economist. He invented behavioral economics with a guy called Amos Tversky, who then died. I know, it's flashing, it's fine. Behavioral economics basically comes from the point of view which goes, you know how in economics you've got a model of reality which insists on rational cost-benefit analysis, homo economicus, rational man. That's not true at all, is it? It's not even vaguely a bit true. And so when this psychologist met some economists in the cafeteria at the university, he realized very quickly he had a fundamentally different model of understanding human behavior than economists did. And it was confused as to how those both things could be operating at the same time. Economics is fundamentally normative. It describes things as they should be, but they're not, basically. Kahneman points out that there's two kinds of ways of passing reality. There's the experiential self and the remembering self. One, in real time, is experiencing reality. One looks back and has memories. And they're not the same thing. And they don't operate the same way, except your brain thinks they do, so you don't know that. Fun, right? Here's a video that explains it. If you ignore everything else that I've said, and you probably should, This video is the crux of what I think is the solution to the issue of seamlessness in the industry, because you can't control the variables. If another provider in the chain of travel does something bad and diminishes the experience, you get lumbered with that because you're part of that experience in some ways. But there's a way around this.
What defines a story? And that is true of the stories that memory delivers for us, and it's also true of the stories that we make up. What defines a story are changes, significant moments, and endings. Endings are very, very important. And in this case, the ending dominated. Now, the experiencing self lives its life continuously. It has moments of experience, one after the other. And you can ask, what happens to these moments? And the answer is really straightforward. They are lost forever. I mean, most of the moments of our life, and I calculated, the psychological present is said to be about 3 seconds long. That means that, in a life, there are about 600 million of them. In a month, there are about 600,000. Most of them don't leave a trace. Most of them are completely ignored by the remembering self. And yet, somehow you get the sense that they should count, that what happens during these moments of experience is our life. It's the finite resource that we're spending while we're on this earth. And how to spend it would seem to be relevant, but that is not the story that our remembering self keeps for us. So we have the remembering self and the experiencing self, and they're really quite distinct. The biggest difference between them is in the handling of time. From the point of view of the experiencing self, if you have a vacation and the second week is just as good as the first, then the 2-week vacation is twice as good as the 1-week vacation. That's not the way it works at all for the remembering self. For the remembering self, the 2-week vacation is barely better than the 1-week vacation because there are no new memories added. You have not changed the story. And in this way, time is actually the critical variable that distinguishes our remembering self from our experiencing self. Time has very little impact on the story. Now, the remembering self does more than remember and tell stories. It is actually the one that makes decisions. Because if you have a patient who has had, say, 2 colonoscopies with 2 different surgeons and is deciding which of them to choose, then the one that chooses is the one that has, the memory that is less bad, and that's the surgeon that will be chosen. The experiencing self has no voice in this choice. We actually don't choose between experiences. We choose between memories of experiences. And even when we think about the future, we don't think of our future normally as experiences. We think of our future as anticipated memories. And basically you can look at this, as a tyranny of the remembering self, and you can think of the remembering self sort of dragging the experiencing self through experiences that the experiencing self doesn't need. I have that sense that when we go on vacations, this is very frequently the case. That is, that we go on vacations to a very large extent in the service of our remembering self.
There's so much awesome in that. I don't even have time to unpack it all, to be honest. We can discuss it later if you want. But there's so much awesome in it. And I guess thinking about experiences, it's important to remember that most of them go away. You won't remember most of what I talked about today. You'll remember the beginning, possibly this video, and however I finish it. Because ends are really important for your memory, because that's the end of the story. It draws a close, and the anecdote gets written that way. So, how do you make that work for you? Well, I'll have to be quick, but this isn't going to be, that's the best bit. New memories change the story. Massive changes, differentials, things that were not expected change the story, become the story. So if you do things like that, people will remember them preferentially over the actual experience of travel, which, as he points out, you mostly forget about. As a very brief adjunct, what I learned from this video when I first saw it was that you should hack your memories as much as possible. Vacations are a way to create memories. That's all you're really doing is creating memories. So if you go on vacation, go on shorter ones and more frequently. Or if you go for a week, change locations twice in that week, then you get 2 memories rather than 1. Just a little tip. So then, very quickly, never mind this. Brands are holistic, consistently of lots of entities, lots of gestures. Gestures escalate accretively into experiences, become brands. Never mind. My point being is things like this. Now, this is hilarious to me. This is a blog post about DoubleTree. As I'm sure all of you know, DoubleTree give you a warm cookie when you check in. DoubleTree seemed like just another hotel chain to me until I stayed there. I was handed a warm cookie with my room card. That's right, this is the Cookie Hotel. What's the hotel like? No idea, can't remember. Good cookie, though. I like that place. Nice cookie, thanks for that. What's the hotel like? No idea, don't remember. Like other hotels, I imagine. Virgin's quite good at this. Virgin have been doing it for a long time. Virgin observed that in their business class and upper class, the salt and pepper shakers were being stolen persistently because they're a bit fancy, so they started making them with the words pinched from Virgin Atlantic on the bottom. Really smart, really nice. For the cost of a business class flight, you can afford to give away salt and pepper shakers, trust me. And you get the goodwill, you get a story. You get this story that then you have to talk about to people because you're like, what I stole, that's funny, isn't it? And the story's great because the story's word of mouth, and word of mouth's really powerful apparently in driving commercial decisions. Very recently, as of last week before, Virgin America is rebranding itself once again to try and make money, and the guy who's doing the creative director calls them winks. Distinctive personal touches that change the story that you leave with. Enjoying the trip is part of the problem, but it's really the story we're thinking about, because the story is more important than the, I'm really running out of time now, sorry, than the memory. So the story is the key thing. Question for today, when you hear everybody talking, what would your wink look like, digitally speaking? I've been thinking about this. It's quite tricky, actually, for me. Very finally, then, and I have to play this because it's awesome, and I'll get off, I promise. You don't mind, do you? You're having a nice time. You think it's great. They're just like all timing, and like, it's fine, it doesn't matter.
I was on an airplane, and there was internet, high-speed internet on the airplane. That's the newest thing that I know exists. And I'm sitting on the plane, and they go, open up your laptop, you can go on the internet. And it's fast, and I'm watching YouTube clips. I'm in an airplane. And then it breaks down, and they apologize, the internet's not working. The guy next to me goes, this is bull. Like, how quickly the world owes him something he knew existed only 10 seconds ago.
Right.
And on planes, flying is the worst one because people come back from flights and they tell you their story. And it's like a horror story. They act like their flight was like a cattle car in the 40s in Germany. That's how bad they make it sound.
Right.
They're like, it was the worst day of my life. First of all, we didn't board for 20 minutes. Right. And then we get on the plane, and they made us sit there on the runway for 40 minutes. We had to sit there. Oh, really? What happened next? Did you fly through the air incredibly like a bird? Did you partake in the miracle of human flight, you non-contributing zero that you got to fly? You're flying!
Oh, God.
It's amazing. Everybody on every plane should just constantly be going, oh my God! Wow! Yes! You're flying. You're sitting in a chair in the sky.
Yes. Yeah. It's just, So, like, it's brilliant, isn't it? Because that's it, right? That's the thing. The story's broken. And he's worked out what the right story is. Which is, I think, and don't worry, I will go off, I promise. If we can change the story, because basically the problem with super satisfaction is that human beings are the best at habituation. It is our primary strength and our greatest weakness. As soon as we see something once, we expect it. Free Wi-Fi, brilliant. Now, where's my free Wi-Fi? Broken. See, so in order to maintain this level of expanding under-promising, over-delivering, you have to keep changing what you do. Because what delights you the first time is expected the second time. So we need to change the story about travel, because it's broken, I think. And one of the ways to do it communication-wise is to remind people they're in a chair in the sky, and that it actually is kind of magic. And we shouldn't take it for granted. And so I'll just leave you with a bit of magic.
En gang til. En gang til, bare en gang til. En siste gang. Please! Bare en gang til.
Setting fire to our insides for fun. Collecting names of forever missing them. But I'm forever missing him.
En gång till. Nu ska jag klimatet mig.
It's just beautiful, isn't it? Thanks, I'm done.